Paul Haggis is a fine, wonderful writer. Akiva Goldsman's another one. Doctor at Pixar. But I don't have favorites. And it's not like rock and roll. It just isn't, where you can pick a favorite and see that they're doing something really innovative in music. And it comes out, every 6 months there's a song or an album or whatever. It's not like that, because the time between starting a screenplay or a novel or a play and actually seeing it on stage, page, or screen is years of development and work, and it goes on over long periods of time. And so it's not, there was a time back when, 50, 60 years ago, when screenwriters were under contract to studios and they were turning out 3, 4, 5 screenplays a year. And directors were directing 2 and 3, 4 films a year. Michael Curtiz, who directed Casablanca, by the time he died, had directed 120 films. Well, those days are gone. If a director gets to direct 12 films in his lifetime, he'd be a success. And so you can't trace development and who's doing the cutting edge thing or whatever like that in those ways. I think the 3 guys who write, produce, and often direct Damages, the 2 brothers, Zellman brothers and Kessler, those 3 guys are doing as exciting work as writers as anybody in film. Film is Hollywood film is very conservative. They do not take risks. Television is experimental. I mean, watching The Sopranos, whatever, or 6 Feet Under, it was an example of applying to television the principle of the novel known as the unreliable narrator. You could never be sure when you're watching The Sopranos or 6 Feet Under, is this a dream sequence? Is somebody hallucinating this? Does this actually happen? Are they just having fun with us or whatever? I mean, until you saw enough of the episode to realize that the whole damned episode was a dream. Nobody does that in film. You can't do that in the movies. It costs $30, $50, $100 million to make a film. You can't have that kind of an experimentation. And when it comes along, when such experiments do happen, like The Usual Suspects, where somebody pulls the plug at the end, and you realize Kevin Spacey made the whole damn thing up. It's a form of cheap surprise. It's a big, huge, cheap surprise. It's not as if it was being done like Louis Buñuel would have done in the 60s to really express the absurdity of life. I mean, when film does tricky storytelling things like that on occasion, it's not as if it's driven by a theme. It's, the Sixth Sense, for example, and the mindfuck ending is just cheap surprise. It's what film students do. But it's not as if that filmmaker has a deep philosophical understanding that runs against the grain of contemporary sense of reality. I mean, he's just having fun. And so he just does this, film school thing, the mind fuck or the, whatever. And so film is very conservative in that way. You can't experiment like that. Or if it's an independent film, you can do films like Pi, Aronofsky's film, right, which is extremely experimental for the sake of experimental. And these guys all went to film school, and they were taught Buñuel and Truffaut and Waja and Bergman, and they were taught the classics of the avant-garde, and so they imitate what used to be really dangerous stuff in the 60s. And so today, there's no avant-garde. Today, it's a retrograde. Today, we have people going back to imitating eccentric forms of the past because they went to film school and they think they should do that, and that makes them an artist. And so I would say that as a storytelling medium, film in particular, has hit a dead end. It's, as I said, it's very expensive, it's very conservative, and experimentation is there to more show off than meaningful. It's just gimmickry. Something's got to give. I don't know what the hell that'll be, in order for film to revive itself as an art form, as a form of entertainment, and a form of commerce. Film's doing better than ever. Oh, well, that's such an generally unhappy topic. I've sold or optioned written for hire 12 screenplays in Hollywood. One of them I have optioned 4 times over. And as far as all of my screenplays are concerned, none of them ever get produced. They have all floundered for various reasons. No less than 3 times I've had studios change administrations in the middle of a development of mine. And so, when new presidents come in, they throw out everything that's in development from the previous administration. I mean, on it goes. I mean, it's one of those sad development hell stories where you make money. I mean, I made a lot of money, but you don't see it on the screen. On the other hand, everything I've written for television gets made. And so I've wrote a lot of episodic cop shows. I wrote the pilot for the Turner Bible miniseries. I wrote Abraham, directed by Joseph Sargent, who's a wonderful Emmy Award-winning director. It starred Richard Harris and Barbara Hershey and Maximilian Schell. It was, a fine production. And so when I've written for TV, they get made, and they hold up, and it's good writing. But screenplays the Guild once did a study of how many of all the screenplays that get optioned, how many actually see it to the screen. Out of every 20 scripts for which serious money is paid, 1 gets made. So the odds are 20 to 1. So I've only, right now it's only 12 to 1 for me. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, that's just the way it is, and just bad luck. But in the meantime, while I was going through that period, I started to teach writing about writing and writing about writing. So many of them. Every time one of my writers wins an Oscar, a Booker Prize, a Pulitzer Prize, an Emmy, whatever. I mean, or they call me, and they tell me that they got something published that was unpublishable, and then they came to my class, did a rewrite, and now it's in the world, whether they win awards or not. But when people take what I teach them, think it through. I mean, all I try to do, I cannot teach people how to write. Nobody can teach how to do anything like that. I just give them things to think about. I just want them to think. I am categorically opposed to what I call the Vesuvius school of writing, where it's all magma, that the writer just sits there and it just explodes out of them, and it's sort of like automatic writing, and their subconscious mind, just whatever, that this ridiculous way of teaching creative writing, that there's no craft, that there's no thought, that there's no rewriting, that there's no understanding by the writer, that it's all some sort of innocent, spontaneous. That is such idiocy. And so I can't teach people how to write, but if I can give them things to think about, things to consider, elements of craft and process, so that their work improves, and talented people think about what they're doing at some point in a way that is very useful to them. As a result of that, I put the idea in their head that these are things that can be thought about, and here's a way to think. about it. Doesn't give you the answers, it just raises the right questions. If I can get writers to ask the right questions of their own work and find answers based upon insights that they've gained from my writing, my lecturing, then my day is made.